We're live. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining in today. This is the Hoopsters Mental Health Watch Club, a community that is aware, knows when to intervene, and has access to the right qualified. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining in today. This is the Hoopsters Mental Health Watch Club.
Nupur, you're muted.
Is everybody muted? Because I can hear some feedback. Yes, all right, perfect. So one of the main things that we do as part of Mental Health Watch Club.
Nupur, you're muted.
Hello? Here's some feedback. Yes, all right, perfect. So one of the main things that we do as part of Mental Health Watch Club.
Nupur, you're muted.
Just give me a second. I'm getting some feedback. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. Hello? Hello, can you all hear me? Tripura, are you there?
Yeah. Yes.
May I request everybody who has joined in to turn off your videos, please? Thank you very much. All right, let's start over. Welcome to the Mental Health Watch, Tripura. Thank you so much for joining me today. And thank you to everybody who is watching it right now, because anybody who knows me knows what dance means to me. And my introduction to dance as therapy happened through Tripura. I remember seeing some workshop and I was so intrigued by it that we had a workshop at my own dance school back then, and that's how we got introduced. For those of you who don't know Tripura, she is a pioneer in the field of dance therapy and introduced it in India in the 1990s. She's also the co-founder of the Creative Movement Therapy Association of India and is an author of this book, My Body, My Wisdom, which we'll also talk about in this chat. So yes, Tripura, thank you. Would you like to say something to begin before we jump into the questions?
Not at all. Just just want to say I'm really excited to be here, Nupur, and to see you after so many years. And it's lovely to, I really look forward to having this conversation with you.
All right. So my first question to you is, why dance therapy? What drew you to this form of therapy? What was the beginning all about?
I think just the fact that, I had a brother on a wheelchair who'd get very excited with movement. I was a dancer. I learned Bharatanatyam in Kalakshetra, and then I also, in Kalakshetra, I saw these three blind men playing the flute, moving their bodies very beautifully. And I also wondered, I wanted to go beyond performance. Wanted to really look at the process of dance and what it does to us emotionally, physically, socially. So I was really interested in that. And I think I just happened to meet a dance therapist traveling in India. Her name was Dr. Grace Valentine. And she invited me to study at the Hancock Center. So I went there, was there for 2 years, studied, came back, and I pioneered dance therapy in India in 1990 in Bangalore, where we met. And as you know, Bangalore is such a receptive place, very open to anything that's new, anything that's different. So it was very beautiful to start. Yeah, go on. Sorry.
I mean, sorry to cut you off, but you're right. I mean, most things, especially in the arts sphere, happens in Bangalore. Like I started Latin dancing in Bangalore. Like nobody else in the country was doing it back then. So
Yeah.
absolutely, please continue.
Yeah, that's okay. So that's how I started. And I also wrote this book called My Body, My Wisdom, because there was no other book at that time. So I had to write. I mean, Penguin approached me to write this book, and that's how the whole thing happened with the book. We'll talk about it a little later, perhaps, about
Yeah.
what the book is about. And then I was also looking at the therapeutic potentials in Indian dance forms, classical, folk, you know. So those were the two things that I really did. And I went around the country training people, not training, exposing them to dance therapy through workshops like the one that you did. And the whole idea was to really spread the awareness that dance can be, as much as it's an entertainment, performing art, it can also be therapeutic and process oriented.
So now that you have spent so many years, I mean, when we started out, there was not really too many people that were teaching or even talking about dance as therapy. And today it's a whole revolution, right? There's so many expressive art therapists, movement therapists. It's wonderful to see. So, in your experience, when did you sort of realize that movement can actually help you express things that you probably won't be so comfortable talking about even to a professional?
Absolutely, you're dot on. And this I realized at the Hancock Center when I was training there. From day one, they put me in different kinds of groups. There was a women's group. There were sessions in a retirement home. There were sessions with people with disabilities. So right from day one, I was part of groups, and in one of these groups with the women, one of the activities that Grace Valentine did was that she said, pick up any prop in this room. So there was a lot of scarves, there were a lot of hula hoops and ribbons and all kinds of props. Pick up any prop and express for me through the prop how you're feeling, in the past few days. And all of us did that. We all went through it, and there was a lot of, without words, like you said, people were expressing grief, they were expressing anger, fear, inadequacies, so it was very interesting. And after that, people said, we don't want to talk about it. This is like what catharsis is all about. And Grace, being very sensitive, said, okay, don't have to talk, just draw whatever you felt, whatever came up for you. And it was a beautiful experience of seeing how the arts are non-verbal and equally effective in helping people to express what they're feeling. So that was my first tryst with DMT.
And what have some experiences been through your journey as a dance therapist? Have you noticed some deep seated issues? Like today we talk about mental health issues quite easily compared to maybe 10 years ago. So when we talk about serious issues like, let's say, depression, let's look at anxiety disorder, or even more severe disorders like schizophrenia or bipolar, what role does movement play in helping people with these conditions?
Right. So movement can be used therapeutically with neurodiverse populations, neurotypical populations. It can be used with children, babies, teenagers, adults, and the elderly. So it's a very large scope and application. And let me just talk about Gen Z maybe, because I'd like to take a specific population and zero in on that. Um, I find that whenever I'm working with young people, of this generation, there is a lot of loneliness. They don't show it, but it's there deep within. And I've seen that when people come together in a group, they start moving, they start mirroring each other, they start attuning and having fun, laughing. Suddenly something opens up in the heart, and they really feel so open in the heart and also open with the body and the mind. And I see that dance has become a natural antidepressant. We talk about antidepressants, but I think dance is so natural. And because there is a social connection in the group where they get to move with each other, and sometimes people don't want to talk. The young generation doesn't want to talk to each other. They probably just want to move and dance with each other to music. And I think what many of them shared was it's like a detox from, the screen. It's so lovely to be in a studio, just being able to dance and in a safe space where they can express whatever they want to. So I find like with the Gen Z, there's a lot of motivation, purpose. They get a lot of agency to say what they want to say and move like the way they want to move. So I would say, dance in that sense is so cathartic and so beautifully it brings people together to express themselves.
Yes, 100%. Because, I working with people who are maybe 10, 15 years younger than me, one of the things that I've noticed is that they're very afraid to meet new people.
Yeah.
It's just something that they don't want to do. And anytime somebody tells me, oh, where do I go meet girls? Or where do, my, my answer to them is just go join a dance class, not for the purpose of meeting a girl, but just meeting people, you know.
Yeah.
There is something about there's some vulnerability to dance. Don't you think that, we're okay to move in a not so normal fashion and other people are watching, and, there's something so lovely about dance as such. Now, group sessions, like group sessions are your thing. I've seen so many videos of you having like 90, 100 people attending, your group sessions. How does dance therapy work within, let's say, corporates where team dynamics are important, where being, well, good communication is important? What have your observations been when you work with larger groups? What are the outcomes usually?
Okay. So I basically like working with smaller groups, but especially in corporates, what happens is it ends up being a large group because it's a whole team that's working together. And in a corporate setting, I don't call it dance movement therapy. I call it creative movement for body expression or, something different. Um, and I noticed that there's, of course, a lot of stress, a lot of burnout among these corporate professionals. And it's very beautiful sometimes when I see the boss and the employees together in an equal space, moving together, and there's no hierarchy. And I think this is what really touches everyone, that we're all the same. We are all human. We want to express, we want to connect. And there's a lot of non-verbal communication that happens, right? Because they're working on a physical plane rather than a verbal plane. So I see a lot of beautiful relationships blossoming. I see a lot of creativity. Of course, it takes some time for people to get from the mind to the body. That in itself is a journey. But once they get into the journey, I find like, people love it. And there's so much of diversity in body types. So many different kinds of personalities come into that space. And I think all this really increases the energy of the whole group.
Yeah.
And I just love doing that. I just love working with corporates or any other big groups now.
You just said that you don't call it dance therapy, you call it creative movement therapy. What is the difference between the two?
Well, when I came to India, when I said I'm a dance movement therapist, people got scared of the word dance. They said, oh my God, we have to know dance to undergo dance therapy. So that's why I called my pioneering work creative movement therapy, because it's less scary. There is the word creative that gets people excited. There's movement that's nothing to do with dance, maybe. And of course, the third word is therapy, which kind of slowly comes in. So that's why I called it that at that point. But the global term is dance movement therapy.
So if you could help us understand, what is a dance therapy session like? Or, what does it entail? Because a lot of people would just probably think about it as, okay, I'm going to go there and dance for some time, and then what is going to happen because of that, So if you could just take us through what these sessions are like.
Each session is divided into 5 parts. The
Mhm.
first part is a very gentle warm-up. I call it the wake-up warm-up. It's like waking up different parts of your body and, moving every part separately and putting the whole body together as a unit to move. The second part is called verbal check-in, checking in with your group. How are you feeling? What do you want to work on? What happened last week? Just a check-in. And the third part is theme development. So you take a theme and you develop all the activities around that theme. For example, if emotion is the theme you want to work at, all the activities are, emotion based. Yeah.
Right.
Or if you want to work on role playing or storytelling, anything can become the theme around which you build activities. And the fourth part is a cool down. Just like the way you warmed up the body, you also cool down the body through breath and movement. And the fifth part is verbal reflection, where
Mm.
you reflect with each other what came up for you in the sessions, what did you experience, what did you feel, what are you taking away.
Right.
So, of course, the verbal reflection can also happen throughout the session. Yeah.
Okay.
So, these are generally the 5 parts of a session, which takes about 1 to 1.5 hours generally.
I see. So, when we talk about dance as therapy, right, is it something that complements traditional therapy, or is it possible for people to also have a breakthrough or deal with emotional or mental health issues through just dance therapy?
Both are possible. There are a lot of people who go for talk therapy, but
Mhm.
they also want to work with the body because they feel a lot of their emotions are stuck in the body musculature and they want to release it. And the best way to release it is through movement, actually.
Mm.
So they also use dance therapy as an adjunct therapy, you know. On the other hand, there are people who only go for dance therapy, who only want to work with their bodies. So that's also possible. Both are possible, and you can find very powerful experiences working with the body. And it's not like there is no verbal reflection in it, right? There is also words in the
Mhm.
session. So I think it's a very good combination of psychotherapy and dance coming together. You know.
Right. Okay. And one area of work that we do a lot as Hoopsters is at schools, with educators, because a majority of a child's life is spent in school, right? It's like what 8, 10 hours they're in school. And I also saw one of your workshops where you, I think, worked with the preschool teachers, if I'm not wrong, or younger class teachers of younger students. So tell me how, let's say we, incorporate dance therapy in schools for educators. What kind of change do you expect that to bring about in the way they interact with students or how they make them feel more comfortable?
So, I've in fact, when I started doing a lot of dance therapy workshops, a lot of teachers, special educators used to come to the workshops, and many of the teachers said, "Why don't you develop something for neurotypical children? Just
Mm-hmm.
normal school-going children, because even they are very stressed. They need to also let go a lot of the anxiety that they feel."
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I developed something called the TDIE, which is the Therapeutic Dance in Education.
Right.
And and we also have a course on TDIE in CMTAI. And the whole idea is to take educators through therapeutic dance, not only to be used with students in schools, but also with themselves as a way of taking care, self-care,
Right.
as a way of taking care of themselves. So, when you do therapeutic dance with students, you notice that there's a lot of emotional regulation. There's a lot of letting go of tension that's held in different parts of the body. They also learn about kinesthetic empathy, where they're kinesthetically empathizing with each other. We also teach stuff like connecting dance to academics, also,
Mm.
how to learn math, science, or language through dance. And I always tell teachers that why don't you include movement in your classroom? You know, just take 5 minutes to stretch, to bend, to do different things with your body, and then get into a lesson. It really, I think, strengthens the teacher-student relationship. when they do stuff like that, So, and also I think you have to recognize that there are different learning styles, very diverse. So who
Right.
knows? Children learn through their bodies also, you know.
So here I would like to, like add an anecdote, from my own experience with you. When we
Yeah.
did our workshop, I remember one exercise that we did, which was how do you show seed germination through movement? Okay, and that has stayed with me for such a long time. When I used to run dance classes with kids, I would give them one small concept and say, okay, today we will learn about photosynthesis through dance. And I found that it was, for me, it was not therapy or anything. It was just an activity, when we were giving them breaks between classes. And what I found was kids would remember things. I would explain something to them, tell them this is how it works. And now you show me, I'll make a group and show me in movement. One person will be the sun, one person is the leaf. Have you seen children having any interesting creative breakthroughs uh, while uh, while sort of learning how to express through movement?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of children do that, right? Like, it was children who came up with the idea of doing solids, liquids, and gases through movement. Can you imagine that? That when we were in class with, I think, class 8 or something like that, they had learned solids, liquids, and gases. So I said, how can we express that through movement? And interestingly, we just done a game called walking in a maze, where you're walking in different directions and freezing. They said, ma'am, we can use that game to express it. So one of the kids said, how when you move very close to each other, it can be solid. And
Mhm.
when you move a little away, it can be liquids and gases all over the place. So this is a creative breakthrough that kids are able to actually think of movement activities or games that can help them express a lesson better and remember it better. They'll never forget this lesson, just like the way that you
Yeah.
never forget, the seed transformation.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that was so interesting for me. There was also the balloon thing, which was like my go-to icebreaker for I don't know how many years. People really enjoyed that. It was such a simple thing, but they had so much fun. Do you
Mm.
so that way do you feel like dance as therapy makes therapy less therapy? Like it's such a hardcore word if you think about it. But I'm going for therapy. It feels like a very serious thing to do. So do you feel
There's
that
less
dance,
stigma.
yeah, it sort of makes it more approachable, I guess.
Yeah, a lot of people who come to me, they just love it because they even forget the word therapy. For them, it's just creative movement and dance and having fun. And, there are therapeutic goals and they are kind of reaching them, but that doesn't become the whole point. The point is for you to enjoy the process of movement and
Right.
have fun with it. And that's why what I do is I divide my work with any group in 5 stages.
Mm-hmm.
So the first stage is movement seeding. You're seeding people, movement into people's bodies. And the second stage is movement expression. Sorry, movement exploration, where they explore movement, have fun with it. Third stage is movement expression, where they begin to get in touch with their emotions, their feelings, and they learn to express. The fourth stage is resolution, where they suppose they come in with a therapeutic need, like there's a very hyperactive group, and you're actually able to calm them down by the end of the session. That's a resolution that's happened. And the fifth stage is integration. So can they, whatever they're learning in a session, can they take it back into their real life? So I think for me, these 5 stages are very important. Otherwise, you can't, it's a way of not jumping a stage. You're
Right.
slowly going through these 5 stages over a period of 2 months or 3 months or whatever.
Right. And now you spoke about therapeutic goals, right? So how do you assess if a person has actually achieved that goal or not? Are there any specific tools that you use? How does a dance movement therapist go to that stage?
Right. So at the Hancock Center, we were taught something called movement assessment and evaluation. How do
Okay.
you assess and evaluate people when you're working with them? So you got to, and it's like a coding sheet that we developed further.
Mhm.
In fact, I worked with art sphere in Pune with Anuba and Karishma, and we developed it further, made it more detailed. And it's like a coding sheet with many criteria like body awareness, self-awareness, group coordination, emotional expression, eye contact, trust building. Like this, there are many criteria which we assess the kids or whoever you're working with. And the rating scales are very simple, good, moderate, nil kind of thing. So you just have to tick one of these. So this coding sheet is used thrice, but once at the entry level when you begin the work, then midway, and then post
Right.
the sessions. So you get a sense of, you can track your progress with the
Okay.
group.
Okay.
And not only that, there's also a self-evaluation sheet that I've developed for teachers who are, for therapists who are training in dance therapy, where they have to evaluate themselves as therapists, their
Okay.
own dance skills, their own, facilitation skills. So it's a very detailed sheet.
Right.
So that idea is that you're not just evaluating the group, you're also evaluating yourself.
Okay, that's very interesting. Now, I want to get into a little bit more about how to become a dance movement therapist. But before that, and also I want to speak about the book as well because I've read that book. So I want to, sort of ask you one thing before we move into that segment. As a dance movement therapist, was there any one instance in your career that you felt like, oh my God, this is why I'm doing what I'm doing? Is there anything that you can think of?
Yeah, sure. Many of them, but one of them really stand out for me. There was this woman who was recommended by a psychiatrist at Max Hospital in Delhi to come for dance therapy because she had a lot of anxiety disorder. And she would come with her sister to the class in my studio. And on the way, there were times when she'd get very agitated and just collapse on the floor. So the sister was always there to help her up because she couldn't stand up on her own. So we worked a lot together with just walking on a rope, like a tight rope, or balancing on a single leg. Took a lot of creative risks with movement, and got her to do mirroring, got her to go across the floor without falling down. Try different kinds of movement patterns with props, with rhythm. And after about 2 months, you won't believe this, she started coming alone without her sister for the therapy sessions. And she was really
Wow.
very aware of her body, and she fell less. She hardly fell down. She was able to control her body so that she could keep it upright whenever she needed to. So for me, that is probably the reason why I do what I'm doing, because with every group, with every individual that I work, I see something like this. I see a kind of progress happening, like you said, a breakthrough. And I think that's what keeps me passionate about the work that I do.
So now we'll come to your book. This was a book that I read when I did your session. I remember we all had made copies and we had kept them with us. Tell us a little bit about that book. What made you write it? Of course, there was no material available. That is one thing. But what was the primary message that you wanted to give out with that book? What was the purpose of that book? And do you feel like there is something in that book that people need to read more than ever today?
Hmm. I think that book was written about 2005 when there were no books on dance therapy in India at all. And Penguin was very clear that they wanted me to write not a very technical book.
Mm.
And the other reason I wrote the book was also that there were a lot of dance therapy books at that time, but many of them came from the West. They were very expensive. People couldn't afford to buy them. And there was no India-centric DMT book,
Mm.
So that's another reason I wrote them. It was kind of difficult because Penguin insisted that I write a book in such a way that anyone can pick it up and read it.
Mm.
So I had to really simplify the language. And it was also a way of inviting people to understand what is dance therapy and get into it. Because, some sort of a starter book. So, in fact, when I read the book now, I want to change about 1,000 things about it. But I think at that point, a lot of people wanted something like this to kind of, get used to what is movement and what is therapeutic about it. How can we use it with different groups of people? What are the different activities you can use? Very simple things that perhaps you might have read in the book that I really focused on.
When you talk about dance therapy or therapy in general, it for Indians especially, it seems like a Western concept. Therapy itself seems like a Western concept, right? Now, especially when it comes to dance movement therapy, people expect probably there'll be some contemporary dance movement. So there'll be some sort of Western dance movement in that. What role do you think traditional and folk dances of India have played, not just in, like the social aspect of our communities, but also what is their therapeutic value? Do they have any such uh, applications?
Yeah, great question. Uh, it was very interesting. Like while I was studying at the Hancock Center itself, I began to think of, oh, this is really good. I mean, they were using ballet, they were using hip hop, they were using a lot of free movement, a lot of creative dance, contemporary dance. And I did wonder at that time, how can I apply something like this to India and look at the therapeutic dance, look at the therapeutic elements in Indian dance forms. I did think about it over there, but when I came back to India, it became very real that I had to do that. Because sometimes when I put on music and said, do whatever you feel like with your body, people froze. They didn't know what to do with their bodies. So I had to find ways, apart from the 5 stages that I developed, I also had to find ways of getting people do something that they're familiar with. So, for example, just as an example from Indian classical dancers, I used gestures and I used them with Saregama to help them memorize and sequence the gestures. I
Right.
also used gestures to tell stories, to express poems. So it's been a lot of fun, where gestures became therapeutic. And I used them initially with hearing impaired children because that was a very good way of communicating with them because it's very similar to their sign language. But much later, interestingly, I also began to use it in retirement homes where elderly people have problems with arthritic fingers, getting weak, they're not able to grasp objects. And they found that when they did these gestures, it mobilized their fingers. It kept the fingers active, it kept the fingers strong. So instead of sitting and doing very boring exercises, they would prefer something like this. So I think sometimes you make something for a group and it gets useful for other groups that you're working with. So that became a way of looking at therapeutic potentials in Indian dance forms.
So, in that sense, dance therapy is not limited to your emotional or mental state of being. It's also physical therapy, right? Would you say that is correct?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think DMT is about reaching out to the physicality of a person, the emotional aspect of a person, the mental, the cognitive, the social aspect, the creative aspect, as well as the spiritual aspect, where people are getting in touch with a deeper part of themselves, and maybe also the performative aspect. The performative aspect is always a little bit of a debatable thing because in the West, they never look at dance therapy as a way of ending with a performance. Whereas
Hmm.
in India, I've seen a lot of work where people like Salahuddin Pasha, who work with people on wheelchairs, or Shohini in Calcutta, she used to work a lot in red light areas, with
Hmm.
sex workers. They used to come up with beautiful performances. So it was also lovely to see that aspect where performances became very powerful with the themes that were generated from their own lives, from the lives of the people that they worked.
Yeah, I can completely understand because, when we are performing on stage, and one is you do your technical, like the standard technical competitive sort of dancing, and then there's one part of your dancing that is to talk about a message. I think some of my most powerful performances on stage have been those with a message to it. So if you just think about it, these are people who are probably marginalized. They're probably uncomfortable with communication. For them to be put on a stage, I think that is extremely powerful. But why do you think it is that performance is debated? is it something that is not allowed, or?
It's not about not allowed. I mean, some people in the West do perform, but I think I understand their point of view. They feel that the process is more important, you know, because product also makes some people nervous. Some people get excited, but some people get very nervous being on stage. So,
Mm.
and it's a bit like physiotherapy. You don't put people on stage, or yoga therapy, right? You don't. It just ends with the fact that people have improved something within them. They've kind of let go a lack that they're feeling. So I think dance therapy is a very process oriented modality, and we're just looking at, if someone doesn't have eye contact, how do you get them to make eye contact, or if
Mm.
someone cannot express their emotions, how can you get them to express, release, acknowledge, recognize their emotions? So it's more
Right.
process oriented rather than,
Oh,
yeah.
understood.
But at the same time, I think things are also changing a lot. Huh?
Mm.
Like even in the UK and in the US, you will find a lot of performances by people who are undergoing physical trauma, or they have some sort of a disability. So that's very much there.
Right. So now let's come down to becoming a dance movement or a creative movement therapist. One is, do you have to be a good dancer to be a creative movement therapist or a dance therapist? And second is, what is the pathway that is available today? I'm sure it's like improved by leaps and bounds. So if you
Yeah,
could
yeah,
tell
you're
us a little
right.
bit about that.
Yeah, in the beginning there were no courses in India, so I think we started it as a certificate course in Delhi, and now there are certificate courses, there are PG diplomas, and then there's an MA in dance
Okay.
therapy. So
Okay.
all these three, and the idea is that when people do a certificate course, they're called dance movement therapy facilitators.
Okay.
And when they do their PG diploma, I think they call dance movement therapy practitioners. And
Okay.
when they do their MA, they call, dance movement therapists or expressive movement therapists.
Right.
And the idea is that, in the certificate and in the diploma course, they can only work with non-clinical population,
Okay.
right? Where
Okay.
people without schizophrenia, people without bipolar, because
Mm.
we don't train, there's not enough time to train them to work with these
Right.
populations.
Right.
And also that they don't have, many people don't have a psychology background. So it's
Mm.
very difficult for them to be able to do that. So we are very clear in our minds when we develop these
Okay.
courses. No, we get a lot of social workers, psychotherapists, psychiatrists, a lot of different kinds of people doing the course. But one thing I always tell everyone is go to a dance class. It doesn't matter what form it is, because dancing also gives you a discipline for the body. It's very important for you to gain a discipline, for you to understand your body. You can't verbalize about body. You need to feel, you need to experience dance. You know what that is
Yeah.
like, no. So I'm all for, go for a dance class. Even if you haven't done it, just go enjoy dancing. It'll make you a more embodied therapist.
Yeah, and also, just the fact that when you go to a dance, I don't know, I mean, I feel like dance classes are so underrated as, a tool to become more social, become more aware. I felt like all the advantages I've had in any industry I've picked is because of my background as a dancer. Communication became easy. You're very spatially aware, so your driving suddenly improves. So I just wish people would understand how powerful dance or art as a medium is.
Yeah.
Um, and going forward from that question, are there any certifying bodies in India? Because I remember when we were looking at dance therapy, there was only ADMT, is that correct? American Dance,
ADT.
ADTA, right? So that was the only affiliation that you could have to become a therapist. What is the scenario today?
It's still the same. We
Okay.
have two associations in dance movement therapy, but we cannot accredit courses yet. We cannot accredit, we can't give out licenses.
Okay.
Uh, so that is a problem still, but even the psychology field itself is undergoing a lot of problems. You can't call yourself a clinical psychologist.
Correct.
So till I think the psychology field sorts out their uh, issues with licensing, right, accreditation, I don't see the art therapies being able to do that. For now, we can't even become registered dance movement therapists. We can just become a dance movement therapist. That's it,
Right.
in India. And you can, of course, work in places like prisons, retirement homes. You can work in special schools, regular schools,
Okay.
de-addiction centers. Yeah, you can work in all these places.
Okay. But we won't be allowed to practice or, like facilitate anything in other countries. Is that right?
But it's a good stepping stone to
Okay.
do something in another country. Like, for
Okay.
example, many of our certificate course students
Uh-huh.
have gone to other countries and they've done their MA over there. And it's been
Okay.
very good for them to, know the fundamentals of DMT
Right.
and then step into an MA where they're much more mature and they're much more ready for a course like that.
And what is the role that CMTAI is playing in, sort of taking this movement forward, having more movement therapists or having more art therapists in the country? How do you help strengthen this entire ecosystem?
Yeah, so CMTAI was set up in 2014 when there were a lot of people, in India just working in isolated manner. Like there were even therapists who had gone abroad, trained, and came back in DMT, and there was no connection between each other.
Right.
So CMTAI became like an umbrella organization where we got people together, where we got movement therapists together. We've been organizing conferences every year since
Mm.
2014. These are international conferences where a lot of dance movement therapists come and they present. We have panel discussions, we have research papers, poster presentations, lot of experiential workshops.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, we do conferences. We also do something called creative exchange, where art therapists come together and present their work to each other so that we can understand how each person works. We also do a lot of open workshops, online, offline, and we run these certificate courses in DMT. So I think through all this, we're trying our best to kind of, spread the word of DMT in
Mhm.
India. Really like open it out, get people more aware that they need to work with their bodies. It's very important to consider your body as a very creative entity that can express whatever you're feeling or thinking.
Yeah, at this point, I'd like to open question. If anybody in the audience wants to ask any questions, please leave them in the chat box. I think we lost Tripura. Hello, Tripura, are you there?
I mean,
Yeah.
sorry.
Your
Just a
video.
minute.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
problem. So if you have any questions at this point, please do leave them in the chat box and we'll come to them. I see there's a couple of questions right now and we'll take them towards the end. Now, let's now come to the challenges. What are the challenges that you have with uh, making dance movement therapy mainstream?
Yeah, there are a couple of challenges. One of them, I think, is funding.
Hmm.
It's still seen, I mean, you know how dance is, right? Even dance is seen as an entertainment. So you can imagine dance therapy. So many people expect you to work voluntarily, but things are getting slightly better. Hospitals are beginning to kind of take in MADMTs into their setting, educational setups are beginning to take in. So that's slowly improving the funding. But I think we have challenges such as people understanding what it is. So there needs to be a lot of awareness building workshops. That is definitely there. So the awareness needs to spread. Funding I already talked about. And there's also this urban rural divide. I think when it
Mhm.
comes to art therapies, like I see it as a much more urban phenomenon where people are there in cities, they're practicing, but not too many in rural areas. But
Right.
nowadays, it's because these certificate courses, diploma and degree courses are happening. A lot of people from these second tier cities are coming, training, going back to wherever they are, like in Mangalore, Trichy, some of these smaller places, though they're not small anymore, but people are going back to those cities and beginning to, you know, and I think mostly the problem is the general public doesn't understand what is therapeutic about dance. I think that's the main thing. So we have to pitch it wherever we go. We really have to pitch what it is, because if you look at physiotherapy, you don't have to explain it so much. People know what is physiotherapy,
Hmm.
psychotherapy, all that, especially in NGOs and schools. I think they're very aware. But with DMT, you constantly have to pitch it. So I think that work is still going on. So those are probably few of the challenges among many others. Yeah.
Yeah, and do there's a huge crisis. I would call it a crisis in the mental health space, which is every second person is now a counselor. Like
Right.
2 days of training, and they're suddenly a counselor. And some people go so far as to even call themselves psychotherapists, um, without really understanding what it entails.
Mm.
Now, do you face such issues in the area of dance therapy? Is also a question where somebody who just knows how to dance and knows a little bit about can connect two dots is going out and calling themselves a therapist. Do you see that happening?
It was happening a lot before, less now because certificate courses are available.
Hmm.
So people are hesitating to do that. But I found like in the past, a lot of dancers would overnight become dance therapists without training.
Right.
And, I mean, I did point it out to a few people, and I also explained to them that if you're just teaching dance to a mentally challenged group, that's fine. Call it therapeutic dance, call it teaching dance, but don't call it dance therapy. Because dance therapy, you need 2 years of training, you need psychology, you need, to go through Laban movement analysis. There's so many aspects that you need to understand before you do dance therapy. And remember one thing, that you're working with vulnerable populations. There might be times when people, women break down, open up. And how are you, without training in dance therapy or in psychology, how are you going to deal with that situation? So if you
Yes.
say a wrong thing, you're actually pushing that person closing up much more than what they'd come with. So I always warn people whenever I meet people who just say that, yeah, I do dance therapy, and I always try and find out where did they do it, is it self-trained, because I think it's very irresponsible of us to use dance with any population without even knowing the population. So if you're working with an adult population with schizophrenia, do you know what is schizophrenia?
Hmm.
Are you aware of it? What are the therapeutic needs of a schizophrenic adult? So without knowing that, I think it's ridiculous to do that. And it was happening a lot in the past, but now I think because there are two associations in DMT, because there's a lot of people on Facebook, on Insta, on LinkedIn asking questions, where did you train? So people are a little more careful about coming for training programs before they call themselves something.
Right. There is a question in the audience. Let me see how many. Okay, there is one question which says, is dance therapy recommended by psychiatrists and mainstream medical field professionals? We ask because when people have injuries, they are sent to a sports therapist to work on specific muscle groups, etc. So does it also happen in the field of mental health? Or does it also happen in the field of physical health? I'm curious now.
Yeah, in fact, just last week I was at a psychiatric conference, it was called Psychartica. So
Right.
it's about how psychiatrists are using the arts also in their work with
Hmm.
client groups. And what I found a little concerning was that many of the psychiatrists are artists themselves, and they're using their art. So I was like, why don't you actually collaborate with art therapists
Mhm.
and use the art therapists who are around you? So I think it's very important that people don't use art just because you know it, but you
Mhm.
need to also train in it. So yes, I get a lot of referrals from psychiatrists, from psychotherapists. I do get quite a few, and I've got quite a few individual clients whom I see online, offline, who've been recommended to go through body-based therapy. So that's really good that, psychology is actually sitting up and saying, hey, you need something like dance therapy to work with your body.
Yeah. In fact, there is now talk of integrated psychiatry, which is the medicine part of it, but they also integrate a lot of spiritual practices, a lot of movement and art practices, which I was introduced to only last year. And that was really interesting because not everybody is going to sit down and speak to a person. It's something that you can't expect, right? Especially if they are struggling with issues like anxiety or severe depression. Just to say, okay, come and sit and talk to us might be a little hard.
Yeah, and that's why I've developed something called the 14-step somatic resourcing ritual, where there are 14 steps that you do. And the whole idea is that you have resources within you. As much as your body is a site for trauma to happen, it also contains resources that you can access. So I've also, kind of taken a lot of clients through this journey of 14 steps. And it's been very effective because they can actually practice it as a movement ritual every day for self-care, you know.
Yeah, so what you said now is very beautiful. Like your body remembers and it also has resources. So for somebody who doesn't, okay, so my understanding of what the body remembers is if you've fallen and let's say I've had like a fracture. For many, 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 many years, you'll be afraid of putting any uh, pressure on that leg. Or I have a shoulder injury. So even today, a handstand is very daunting for me. Like I can't do it you know so that is my understanding of how the body remembers, and of course muscle memory being a dancer. But what is your experience in your area of work? What does the body remembers translate to?
Well, a lot of people that I know, when they begin to move, a lot of kinesthetic memories come up, memories that are stored in the body. So it's very interesting that there was a time when I was in a workshop and we were getting people to move on the floor because people hardly move on the floor. They're always vertical when they
Mm,
dance, as. So moving on the floor is only for yoga. Dancers are not don't use it much, according to some people. So we were doing this activity where they were moving on the floor, and one person sat up and she started crying a lot, and she remembered how uh, she was, because of an alcoholic father, she was getting away from him on the floor, while he was trying to beat her up. So this kind of a kinesthetic memory came up for her, and then we kind of sat down in a circle. The group was very supportive, and each person had a different experience with moving on the floor. So this was a very powerful experience. And then I gave her a dupatta and said, okay, now move the dupatta and express what you're feeling right now. So she was talking and moving at the same time. So this is called verbal physical synchronicity. So we kind of have to figure out ways. You have to choreograph on the spot. You have to think on your feet. So I think somewhere a dance therapist is also a choreographer. you know
mm,
that skill is also important because you're using space in a very interesting way, being a choreographer.
right.
So once she moved the dupatta and let go these heavy feelings that she was holding on to, she felt much lighter. She felt much happier. She said, I'm feeling happy right now without a reason. So I think for me, that's great, right? I mean, just to get
Yeah,
from that part where she was, you know,
I mean, if you're the reason somebody says I'm feeling happy today, that's, I think, incredible, right? i
yeah.
think I think that's very, very powerful. And to think that these kind of memories come back with a very random movement. I mean, I hope people who are watching here really go for and talk about how movement can be so powerful as a medium of healing.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was that
Wow.
was a that was a very interesting thing that you just said. I was like, okay, that moved me a little bit. That's very interesting because not many people realize, the power of dance. And I can't stop saying it as somebody's
Yeah,
experienced. I just cannot stop saying it.
Yeah, dance has certainly got so much of power that sometimes you find it difficult. Sorry, there's some messages coming. I'm sorry about it. You find it difficult, like to understand the power of dance till you experience it. Sometimes
Yeah.
that's why I feel you can't talk about it. People really need to experience it to understand how dance can be powerful. You know. So,
Yes.
and also, like, I hope that what people take away from this whole conversation between us is that can we use movement as a self-care technique every day? Whether you're a dancer, whether you're not a
Yeah.
dancer, can you put on music for 10 minutes a day and move your body the way you want to move? You know, um, just to
Yeah.
release whatever you're holding on to. So you don't have to tell yourself you're doing a sad dance, happy dance, just move and something gets released.
Yeah, I'm sure. See, the thing is, we talk about all the arts, right? But for me, it's also my personal bias that I feel like there's one extra layer in dancing, which is that you have to move. Like you can just stand in a place and play a music, you can sit in a place and play a music, play a drum, play a set of drums, for example, right? What is with the dance? You're standing with a group of people, you're moving. You don't know if you're looking good or looking bad. There's a mirror usually, which is showing you exactly how silly or how great you're looking. So I feel like there is one extra layer to dancing that is, for me at least, it feels like you must experience this. Do you feel the same being a dancer?
That you must experience dance.
No, that dance is like a different kind of art form. Like, I don't know how to explain it. But as a fellow dancer, would you agree that there are more layers to it?
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Not to undermine
definitely.
anything else, but
Yeah, there are layers, and the idea of not, in fact, when I do a workshop, I make sure there are no mirrors around the room because I want people
mm,
to. Uh, it's not about it's not about aesthetics, it's about kinesthetics. I want you to feel
mm,
and experience and not judge yourself when you're dancing. I really want you to feel the dance and enjoy it rather than looking at the mirror and saying, oh my God, I don't look good. So
mm,
in fact, I put curtains on the mirrors in our studio whenever I do a workshop. And then without the mirrors, people get deeper into what they're feeling or thinking. So I think that would be a great layer to look at. What are you feeling? What are you thinking? What are you experiencing?
mm.
What are you sensing in your body? What is your body speaking to you? People don't listen to their bodies. So what is your
Yeah,
body saying to you? Do you listen to it? Can you just stand there and observe what's happening in your body? So yeah, these are very deep layers that one can go into. It becomes a
yeah,
lot more like somatic work, basically.
yeah. I completely agree. And you're also like pushing your body to a certain extent. You're like trying to do different things, which also opens your mind. I feel,
Yeah,
in a way.
yeah.
Yeah,
When the body opens up, the mind also opens up because the mind and body are connected to each other. That's the first principle we learn in dance therapy.
yeah.
So yeah, and I also see how a non-verbal medium like dance opens up people verbally.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
I completely agree.
yeah,
I,
I
I,
see
I
people.
am, I am somebody who is a living example of that. I was never a
Ah,
shy person per se, but to go out and talk in public. I used to do it in school and all of that. But I feel like when I started dancing, it became better. It just became very easy. So you're right. So please continue. Tell me more about that.
no, for example, I see a lot of people coming into our course or into a workshop very quiet, not talking to each other. Like you said, you don't make the attempt to go and
Yeah.
connect with people. But the moment you start moving, and when I say take 2 minutes to chat with each other, they don't stop talking. You know.
Mm,
So I think dance actually opens up a space where people can verbalize what's happening for them, and sometimes they share really deep, sad stories that you wouldn't share with a stranger, but if they actually do, they do share with strangers. And I've seen groups bonding together through dance and movement, which I
Yeah.
think is fascinating for me.
The group that was in our workshop way back when, I'm still in touch with them.
Wow,
You
that's
know, and
amazing.
we just stay in touch. She's doing something, they're doing something. I know somebody who became a psychologist, a psychiatrist after that. So, that group is still one that is always in my radar. So definitely people that have danced with once, if you've gone to a dance class for a month, those are people that you will never ever forget.
Yeah, there's something about working with each other's bodies,
Yeah. I remember
Must-
every single person that I've danced with for a certain amount of time,
Mm.
and some of my deepest friendships have been formed through rehearsals, through dance classes. We have Ashima here, who's one of my friends from my dance class. I'm learning Kathak now. So that's how we became friends. And, yeah, I think I can go on about dance forever. So, being mindful of time, I have three questions for you, last three questions for you. The first one is, through your work, have you seen any recurring emotional patterns in the recent past, or has something changed in the way people express their emotional self?
Um, yeah, it's also because I think I see a change in the way that people express themselves because I take them through uh, very simple to complex ways of expressing emotions.
Right.
So, in the beginning, people are scared about emotions. They don't want to express at all. And I get them to do statues with different emotions. I get them to move through space. I ask them that, okay, now your feet is feeling sad, your hands are happy. I also break that up, so I do a whole range of things which are almost theatrical before getting into suppressed emotions, masked emotions which are more personal. And I've seen that people do open up, and there is a very beautiful, uh, very healthy way of expressing emotions that
Right.
many of the people in the group go through, and they're really surprised that they can express the emotions and not feel weird about it. So that's one thing I've noticed, the way that people open up to expressions and emotions.
And now, after all this discussion, what would you say to somebody who would say that dance therapy is just dance? It's just another dance class. What do you have to say to them?
Oh no, it's not just a dance class, because in a dance class, you dance with each other, you learn, you choreograph, you perform, and you make your way out. But I think in a dance therapy session, it's all about not running away from your problem, but confronting your problem, in a space. So, for example, if someone is feeling a lot of grief, you're not coming to the class or to the session to forget your grief, but to actually work with grief, to actually let go the grief, to talk about it. What's the source of the grief?
Mm.
Can you let go the grief through the movement of a dupatta, maybe? And how do you feel now that the grief has got released through your body? So I think it's a lot of deep work that touches people emotionally. I'm not saying dancing is not deep. Of course, it's very deep. But I think in a dance therapy session, it's really about working on different aspects of your personality, on different emotions that you're not willing to confront outside in your real life.
Mhm.
So I think it really helps people center and ground themselves and be able to express themselves more freely than they have before.
And how can a platform like Hoopsters, where you work with children, with parents, with educators, and also a lot of corporates, how can we help take this to more people? If there is anything that you want to say right now, we could discuss it later. But is there anything that you have in mind that we could do together? Or how this platform can help?
I think maybe to go through a little bit of a certificate course kind of thing to really, because dance therapy is not just the dance, there's a lot of theory behind the dance
Right.
also. So to learn the theory about dance therapy, the definition, the objectives, so many things. Then to also learn a bit of counseling, psychotherapy skills, to learn how to observe movement in your body, in other people's bodies, So it's a whole lot of things. And I think when you do all this, then you feel more confident about working with different kinds of groups. And also dance therapy is also about facilitation skills. How do you facilitate an activity? You might learn an activity, but how do you facilitate? So we also work a lot on that.
Mhm.
And we also do internships where after the course, you go into an NGO, you work in an NGO using dance, and you're supervised by a faculty member,
Right.
So you have to go through all this, and then you're much more confident when you work with any kind of.
Okay, and my last question to you is, do you have any message that you want to give out to, specifically since you spoke about the Gen Z, the Gen Z and their stakeholders, the parents, the educators, their colleagues. Is there any message that you want to give out to them today?
Yeah, I mean, there's a kind of what do you call it, jingle in a way that I constantly say. I don't sing it, I just say it. Movement is the most natural antidepressant. Use it. Movement is our universal mother tongue. Speak it. Movement brings you into the here and now. Enjoy it. Movement keeps you alive and kicking. Move it.
Perfect way to end this conversation. Thank you so much. I'll stay in touch. I see a lot of things happening going forward with
Yeah.
Hoopsters and potentially CMTAI. I'm saying it right now.
Yeah. Fantastic.
All right.
Yeah,
Thank you
thank
so
you
much.
very much for your beautiful questions, Nupur. Really enjoyed having this conversation, and I hope many more people get interested and take up dance therapy because you can use it with so many different kinds of. So, thank you very much for your space and your time.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for joining in. Hope you have a great, great evening. Have a good day, Tripura. Thank you.
You too. Bye.